Hello everybody, you are most welcome to today's edition, I should say. It's a pleasure to see you once again. For purposes of formality, I would like to reintroduce myself. And my name is Ivan Hajisu. I teach English language and literature in English. Last time, if you remember quite so well, we talked about words, dear friends. And we tried to define what words are. That is, if you remember so well. Actually, if you cannot remember, then I would like to refer you to the previous video that was showcased, so you can know what words are and the categories. Okay, so on that particular note, we were able to focus on one category of words, and those were the nouns. We talked about nouns in detail, and if you don't mind, you can still look at them in order to have a better grasp of that content. Today is yet another new day. You know, every day is new and new things come and we talk about new things. I don't know what is new in your place there, but certainly there is something new. And the news, amazing. The news today is that we will talk about adjectives as a category of words. What are adjectives? Allow us right here for purposes of making a good follow-up. Okay. So this is our topic, and we're saying adjectives. When somebody says, I would like to know what an adjective is, we would simply say that an adjective is a type of word which describes. If it does not describe, it qualifies. If it does not qualify, it modifies. Three keywords there: describe, qualify, or modify. The good news is that these words are doing the same thing, so you don't have to be scared. Just take one, the simplest. If it were me, I would talk about maybe describing. Quite simple, because if you talk about descriptions, we are yet to see what adjectives can do, dear friends. So an adjective is a word that describes, okay? It qualifies, okay? And then we can also say it modifies. Now, somebody would ask a question and say, what? What does it qualify? What does it describe? What does it modify? It describes nothing but nouns. And everybody knows that we talked about nouns and we said nouns are words that name the objects and things around us. So I remember asking you to look at maybe your compound and look at some of the nouns there, the objects, the real things, and talked about maybe the trees, because I love trees so much. I don't know if you like trees, but trees are so good companions. Trees, you can talk about maybe the insects. I have some crickets, those that make very chilly noise at night. Actually, annoying noise, I should say. Yeah, crickets, we should call maybe hoppers, locusts, among others. So those are the nouns. Those nouns are described by adjectives, dear friends. All right, so the adjectives describe or qualify or modify nouns. Now, if we have that at the back of our minds, dear friends, it is important to know the underlying use of these adjectives. And when we talk about the underlying use in terms of what it is exactly that they describe, somebody may say, okay, they describe. What is it that they describe? I think that's a very paramount question. You could be there and then you try to think, what is it that an adjective could describe? So I hope you're trying to think along with me, dear friend, and that's very important. To start with, I think I will give one, and then right there, you think about giving the next quietly before I can give the next. Well, they describe what we call feelings. Adjectives describe feelings, dear friends. One time I have this analogy to tell you, an analogy about a bee. A bee one time went and reached a certain water hole, and while there it found this gentleman who was trying to also get water, and so, you know, water is life, so The bee wanted water to go and, make some sweet honey so everybody can enjoy. And this man wanted water in order to go and carry out his domestic chores. And so whenever the bee would go and try to suck up some water so it can put in its pouches or something, the man would try to chase it away. And you don't want to imagine how the bee reacted. The bee was angry. Now, when we say angry, angry is an adjective. Why do we say it's an adjective? Because it has described the feeling of the bee. A bee is a noun. Everybody knows what a bee is. These insects that make us sweet honey. So a bee has feelings just like us. A bee can be happy. A bee can get angry. So we can say adjectives describe feelings. So if the bee was chased away from the waterhole, just like you would get angry at somebody who chases you and denies you the right to get what you want, I don't think you would be happy. Rather, you would be happy. You would be angry, certainly. So there we are, feelings. And if we're talking about some of the feelings, we will look at, we'll talk about anger, we will talk about joy, we will talk about a feeling of probably contempt. You have dislike for somebody, so you have that contempt in you. You feel like you don't need to look at somebody. If somebody comes and abuses you and you are smart upstairs, you will just keep quiet and look at them, and you will treat them with contempt because you have a certain feeling towards them. If somebody maybe came and maybe tried to scare you, and you are this kind of strong person, you will not be frightened, so you'll be full of courage. Courage is a feeling, so you describe. Remember, we're talking about adjectives, words that describe nouns. And what do they describe about the nouns? The feelings. We could look at other aspects that are described, especially when we talk about adjectives. Among them include qualities. Adjectives describe qualities. If you don't want to say qualities, you could talk about something like attributes. When you talk about a quality or an attribute, you could look at somebody. For instance, we're looking at maybe a CEO of a certain company, right in your local area, CEO of a certain company there. This person, whenever they are going to work, they do not present themselves as shabby. They do not, and that is negative. They do not present themselves as shabby. They present themselves as very smart and organized. So when you say smart, you are describing the person's quality or the person's attribute. You don't want to know what that means. So it means the way you present yourself will determine how people will describe you, who is watching me over there. If you are this kind of person who, when they tell you to do something, for instance, and the next thing is you are throwing tantrums, we are going to describe you, dear friend. And we will describe you based on what you do. If you are this person who finds somebody in need, and then you offer a helping hand to a brother, say, come, I will help you. That's amazing. We will describe you. And we will be describing a noun. That is a perfect example of an adjective. So if you help somebody, we would say you are kind. So the aspect of being kind, that attribute of being kind, is what we're looking at as an adjective. Well, that is just a great overview about what adjectives are. Now that we know what they are, dear friends, we would like to delve or to dive. I hope you don't dive from the balcony where you're watching from. Otherwise, we might have to call the doctor to maybe treat your broken bones or something. Take care, dear friend. All right, thanks. By the way, so we would like to go into other details, and we are going to look at the types of adjectives. Okay. We are going to divide these adjectives given their functions. Different adjectives have different uses, as a matter of fact. So, we will go straight to adjective type number one. Not adjective, but type number one of the adjectives. And number one is what we call the descriptive kind of adjective. descriptive. Dear friend, it is with utmost delight that I would like to inform you today that there is what we call a descriptive adjective. Now, descriptive clearly comes from the word to describe. Now, when you describe, that is an action. That is also a type of a word. And a word that expresses action is nothing but a doing word. So, to describe is to do. When you describe, what are you describing? Probably an attribute of something. So, when you describe the attribute of something, given the kind of word that you choose, we will call that a descriptive adjective. All right, so a descriptive adjective is that one which gives us extra information on the noun that is being discussed. Extra information. So if we, for instance, I would like to imagine right where you are. And so you are looking at me and I am looking at you. So what do you think of me? Can you describe how I feel? Well, I would like to try to describe how you feel before you could even describe how I feel. I could say you are feeling probably, from the look of it all, you are feeling irate, probably feeling so nice. That's one of the ways I could describe how you feel. I could say you are motivated. Yeah, that's a description. So, descriptive adjectives basically add information on a noun. Well, let's imagine. Maybe you would like to know what kind of cloth you're putting on. Yeah. So I wonder which kind of color you will conclude this is. The shirt in which I am clad. Well, we could say this is dark blue. When you say this shirt is dark blue, you are describing. Okay? You are giving a description of the kind of adjective. So when you talk about maybe the color of this shirt is dark blue, that's the color of a shirt. So we could maybe talk about something else, right where you are there. You could be there and your TV, probably there is a cartoon that is showing, or if it's not a cartoon, there is somebody who is scoring a goal, and then the display of the screen is probably black and white. That's black and white. Yeah, we could say that's a description. So when we talk about a description, adjectives describe. As simple as that. Descriptive adjectives. That's just one. Okay, so the descriptive kind of adjectives simply add extra information onto the noun. I would like us to go to the next. Type number two of the adjectives includes, we have the, I thank you. You can read this under your breath. I will give you 3 seconds. Surely, they are over. Quantitative adjectives. These adjectives show us how many or how much of the noun is being talked about. So if I say, how many goats are in your farm? Just in case you are a farmer, then I will be trying to describe the number of goats. I will be expressing the nouns numerically. So when you express an adjective numerically, dear friends, you are talking about a not descriptive but quantitative adjective. How many? How much? How much of time do you have? Time. You would like to know. So you're describing the time. So those are what we call the descriptive. I don't know why I like so much descriptive adjectives. It's just because adjectives are words that are used to describe, if we were to go back to our definition. I think that's why it is sticking so much into my head, as a matter of fact. But when we talk about quantitative, we are looking at how much, how many. It's as simple as that. So if you say, I have 20 head of cattle on my ranch. I have 20. Because you have expressed the number 20, you are looking at that adjective as showing us the quantity. Quantitative. Yes, quantitative adjective. So that's one of the other types. So as long as you talk about numbers, and you're describing something, I have, probably we could say, you have about 19. Okay, let's talk about 30 if you don't mind. 19 might be a small number. 30 30 pairs of shoes. I think that's enough to fill up maybe the whole shoe rack or something of the sort. So when you talk about numbers, you're talking about quantitative adjectives. The other type of adjectives that I would like us to discuss here is the proper adjectives. Proper adjectives. Well, proper. When I say, I would like to use this marker to illustrate this. I say, this marker has fitted into my pocket properly. It means that I am specific. Why has the marker fitted into my pocket? How has it fitted properly? In so doing, I am showing you something. So I just wanted to bring out the fact that a proper adjective is one that gives specific information. Why is it specific? We would like to derive this word proper from the type of nouns. Unfortunately, I didn't discuss it. Probably we'll talk about it the next time after you have subscribed and, of course, liked. And if you don't mind, put a comment where necessary. So we'll talk about the proper kind of nouns and improper nouns at some later time. So a proper noun is one that is specific. Talks about something specific. So is it with the adjective. A proper adjective is conjured, is formed from the noun. So if at all we talk about an example of a proper noun, we look at a noun such as, an adjective such as Ugandan. I have tried that. Yeah. Ugandan male, for instance. So when we talk about a Ugandan male, we are talking about a man from Uganda, not a female, of course. So, and that is just enough to describe Ugandan, specific. We are not looking at probably a Kenyan male or somebody, but Ugandan. We could maybe think about an American something. American. We're talking about North and South America. We talk about a European kind of dressing, European style. So the style is European-like, if you don't mind. We could talk about maybe Asian dress code. The Asian, from the word Asia. So from Asia, we get Asian. And so when we get Asian and we use Asian to describe a dressing, then that becomes a word that is describing. And when it describes, it qualifies to become an adjective. But which kind of adjective? A proper adjective, because it is specific, dear friend. All right, I would like to, if you don't mind, go to the next type of adjective. There are also these that we call compound. Tell your neighbor, compound. Oh, sure, thanks. A compound adjective is one that is made up of just more than one, not just only one. It has to be probably two words. So when we talk about a compound adjective, it is a word that describes, but it is a two in one. There is that bit of connection. So we were looking at a word such as, for instance, allow me make reference to probably a color. We would say the sky is light blue. So when we say the sky is light plus a hyphen, and then we say blue. We will take this as one word. Why? Because we have hyphenated light blue. And when we hyphenate it like this, it means we are coming up with what we call a compound adjective, as a matter of fact. You could think about some other compound adjectives that are used to, describe some of the nouns there. We could talk about maybe a tight-fitting cloth. Yeah. So when you talk about the description of the cloth, you're talking about a cloth that is fitting you in what kind of way? In a tight way. So it becomes a tight-fitting cloth. So if it is tight-fitting, tight-fitting. Okay? Allow me write it here in brackets. Tight-fitting. Exactly. And this is the descriptive word that qualifies it to be an adjective. So apart from the descriptive type, the quantitative type, the proper type, the compound type, I would like to probably add on one last type for today. And we will go for the, guess what I'm going to write? Number 5. I think you must be thinking at a faster rate than I am. Exactly. Here it is. The interrogative type of adjective. This interrogative type of adjective describes a noun. But when we talk about interrogative, from which word does interrogative originate? It comes from the word to interrogate. And to interrogate means to ask. So if somebody comes to your gate and you have not seen them for a while, maybe you might have met an old friend and then forgotten them, and then you start by asking them questions. You say, what brings you here? Why have you come here? Probably you could be asking such types of questions, if you like, anyway. When did you come here? So in the act of asking the questions, you are interrogating somebody. And that is exactly where we get the type of adjectives which we call interrogative adjectives. I would like to relate them so much to the WH words. And the WH means when we talk about what. Yeah. Then we could talk about what. We could, if I could come up with maybe a question to ask what, we could say, what shoe do you wear? What shoe do you wear? So I'm asking for a description of the type of shoe that you wear. I say, what car do you drive? Fortunately, I like to drive, as a matter of fact. I don't know about you there. If you don't know, it's a life skill that you should incorporate. What shoe do you wear? All right? What car do you drive? And in so doing, you are interrogating. And why do you interrogate? Because you want to get a description of the kind of noun. So if somebody is to give a response, they would say, I drive probably the type of car that is in your parking yard, I should say so. Not to be very specific and so on. Yeah, so I drive that particular type of car. And when you say that answer, you would have given a description of what is expected. So dear friends, it is very important to know that when you're talking about adjectives, first and foremost, they describe nouns. If you don't want to say they describe nouns, you could simply say they qualify nouns. And if you don't want to say so, you could only say that they modify nouns. And what do they modify? They would modify the feelings of the noun. They could modify the qualities or attributes of the noun, probably the contents, among others. Yeah, and so we talk about the types. We've looked at them here quite in detail. We talk about the descriptive, the quantitative, the proper, the compound, and the interrogative type of adjectives. Dear friends, having spoken fairly exhaustively, I would like to thank you for keeping with me up to this time. And I would like to hope that we meet once again. But above all, do not forget to like Tower Academic and subscribe above all, so that you can keep on getting the subsequent bulletins. Keep smiling and be happy. See you again. Best of luck. Thank you. All right.